Hello and welcome to Working Dragon Mystic. I'm Drake. Thank you for joining us for the magical coffee hour this Friday night. Tonight we will be talking about paranormal investigation methods. I think we're going to all have a lot of fun with that. I'm going to be answering some questions I've received from viewers on this topic as well. Before we do get started, we are building a locals community. There's a free side of it and a supporter side of it. I've dropped the link at the top of the live chat there. You can also find the link in the show notes. So easy to find there. You can also find the workingdragonmystic.com website, which has links to all the things Working Dragon Mystic, including our merch store, where you can buy little coffee cups like I'm drinking out of here tonight. Wall tapestries, and even have some of the Dragon's Eye Seal beach towels that I actually use them for altar cloths when I go hiking or camping out in the woods. Really handy to have. I love mine. Also, a lot easier to clean than some of the lighter wet factor. So check those out. If you do want to, which head over to locals and sign up for support there. You can support us and it gets you access to all the supporter only content. In fact, we're even uploading supporter only courses. We got a lot of things coming not down the pipeline for you supporters, and there's monthly spell working for supporters. So yay, all those good things. So consider supporting us. Also, we do have super chats. I've been forgetting to mention this. Sorry, I've been extremely distracted. I was away for a while, but we do have a super chat here also in the live stream. If you asking a question, we're missing it. A super chat makes a little thing flash up on the screen nice and big and make sure I see it. As long as it's safe for work, keep all your questions in the chat safe for work or family friendly, if you will. If you have things that aren't safe for work or not family friendly, those will have to go over to the locals channel. That being said, it'll flash it up real big. I'll make sure to get that. And any super chat with or without a question, $5 or more, also enters you into spell working I do every Monday for prosperity, well-being, and general blessings in a person's life. Okay, there we go. Now that the boring announcements are over, hope everybody is doing well. Let's say hello. We got Eden, good to see you. Aylin, good to see you. Don't forget. Oh yeah, everyone. If you are here, hit the like button. It helps out the channel with that pesky algorithm a lot. And with all the changes that is happening on YouTube, we need the help. Trust me. Let's see. Anon message. Hello, Mathis. Hey, good to see you, mate. Hope everyone is doing well. Now, so tonight when we're discussing paranormal investigation methods, okay, we're going to be discussing different methods. And if you have a method you've heard about and you don't understand it, put it in there. I'll see if I've heard about it. There's some methods that honestly I haven't heard about or used too much, but we are going to discuss them and stuff. Now, I want to understand, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying one method is right and one method is wrong. I had one of the questions that I want to clear up tonight. I've on YouTube and over at Locals made a few comments about how I do investigations, right? I don't use any audio editing software because, in my opinion, if I want good, solid audio evidence to prove the existence of the paranormal, I need Class A or at least, right? So it needs to be perfectly clear on that device without any manipulation at all. That's my standard, right? And I'm ultimately doing paranormal investigations in hopes to collect that data. The data is the important thing to me. Is it fun to get out there and do these? Yes. Is it interesting? Yes. Could it be viewed as a hobby? Yes. But without that data, it loses all interest to me, all interest. Okay. That is a me thing. That's a me thing. Okay. So when I'm applying methods and the stuff I use to collect the data and make sure it's the most reliable data possible, that's a my standard thing, right? So we have to make that clear first and foremost. So Many of you know I don't really use psychics. I don't rely on psychics for paranormal investigations because, regardless of what they say, 9 times out of 10, it's hearsay. It doesn't get you anywhere. And when it does get you somewhere, at best, it's you can line it up with history. And then there's always going to be people doubting whether or not they knew the history prior and all that stuff. And it's really hard to keep a double blind clean. So yeah, it's complicated, and the data always ultimately is tainted, and that's why I don't use them. That's not to say that all the psychics going in are frauds and phonies and they're just making crap up. That's not the case. It's just the data is not as reliable for the scientific proving, if you will. That's just that. So for those who use psychics, I understand why they use them. It's a handy tool. I want to make it clear, just because I don't use a method doesn't make it wrong. Okay. There's a lot of people who want to think that my method is the only method, and this is how you should be doing it. If you ain't doing it this way, then it's just hogwash. Well, that's not the case, people. I have a reason for why I do what I do, but that doesn't mean everyone else is wrong. Okay. Okay. Let's make sure we got that. All right. So let's look at how I do things first. Okay. I do like to use things that are going to get me the absolute clearest data to present in a data collection methodology that I can. So for EVPs, like I said during my earlier rant, I love class A. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't care what the recording device is. I don't care if you're using your phone. I don't care if you're using a little digital recorder like we used to use in college. I don't know what the kids are using these days to record a lecture. I don't care if it's a literal tape player that records it on tape. When I say class A, I hit that button. It comes through so clearly, there's no doubt what's said. It's not garbled. It's not jumbled. We hear it. It's clear. I don't need to crank the volume. I don't need to turn down the background noise. It's clear. That's a class A. If I have to turn down the background noise, if I have to clean it up, if I have to isolate it, that's intriguing, but that's not good data to me, because anytime you run it through a program, you're adding an extra layer of someone can doubt or say it changed or it's not really there. The brain's just trying to make it sound like something. There's all these excuses that people can put onto the data. That's why I'm a class A only kind of guy when it comes to those. And a perk to that, it actually makes the audio devices easier, because this day and age, everyone has a freaking phone that has a recorder on it, right? So it's really hard to find somebody that doesn't have something that can collect an EVP data point, which is really, really handy. And it saves you on expensive editing and audio programs as well, because, yeah, you don't need them if you're seeking out the class A's. So really, for me, the class A evidence is kind of checking a lot of personality boxes, because it's that really super clear evidence, and it allows me to be a cheapskate. So I'm saving money while getting better data, and that's just win-win for me. Hey, Immortal, glad you can make it. Quan Yin, glad you can make it. Falcon, welcome. So that's how I handle that. Now, video. How do I handle video? Honestly and truly, video is one of the trickier ones this day and age, but it's still easy. I do not have a flare camera, though I do like flare footage. I do think flare footage has a place. Now, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with flare footage. What are you seeing? You can't really tell what it is, those kinds of things. If I get a camera, any camera I use, when I use it, I want to test it prior. I do not like grainy camera footage, because as someone who used to work in security, I can tell you right now, the most normal thing in the world walking across a grainy camera with a bad reception can look like a ghost, a cryptid, or some of the god awful knows what else. So grainy pixelated footage is not something I will use. You ever sit down and watch a paranormal show with me? I am picky. I will look at it and I will give you 1,001 reasons why it's not a ghost, because You can't prove it's a ghost because there's 1,001 things it could be because of the grainy footage. So my first thing is I want a reasonably clear camera. Okay. I want a reasonably clear camera. Same thing with night vision. I want reasonably clear night vision, infrared, whatever I'm using, period. So I'm always looking for a clear camera image, as clear as I can. And one of the things I try to hold myself to and try to tell my team is, if you're filming, if you're holding the camera, if it's not stationary, do your best to keep that camera steady and keep it focused and move slowly. Yeah, I don't want to see any erratic movements or panicking. And I know when something spooks you, that's the hardest thing to do. And yes, everyone will get spooked in a dark building occasionally, but do your best, because if you're holding it, you could basically destroy it, because you're going to not really understand what you saw. And the fast movement can blur the camera. All those little nasty little things, those kinds of things. So whenever possible, I love to use some stationary cameras. Trail cams are actually really good for this, in my opinion. So, those kinds of things where you can lock down that data, those are great. One of the big fads this day and age, spirit boxes. For the longest time, I full on said I don't like them. And I had good reason. All they did was sift through white noise and try to pick up. Some of them were picking up radio stations. They're designed to just sift through random bandwidths and pick up things at random. Because of this, you don't know if a spirit's actually using it, or you don't know if it's just randomly picking something up. And people will try to take the vaguest of answer and make it fit the question, like forcefully try to make it fit. And I'll be honest, most people who present spirit box data to me, I really I can't see the leap they're making to make the answer fit the question. I'll be honest. Now, that being said, however, as someone who has been a major skeptic to spirit boxes over the last year or so, I have started to see some really cool data coming out where it's very compelling. I really like it. And there's a new methodology for using them that I honestly like. I truly like it. And I'm actually considering getting a spirit box. And if I do get a spirit box, this is probably the method my team will use. And I need to talk with the individuals who's signing up to make sure they're comfortable with this. Because this method is, you take the spirit box, you put some noise canceling headphones into the spirit box. You put the headphones on, you blindfold yourself, you can't see and you can't hear what's going on in the room. All you hear is the white noise in the spirit box. And no one else in the room can hear what you're hearing. You do not ask the questions. You have someone else in the room ask the questions. And you listen, and all you do is you say what you hear. So you're completely cut off. You don't know what's being asked. You can't see what they're doing. You are cut off from what's going on in the room. This I like, because this does remove you from it. This removes you from it. You're not just trying to plug in the words to the question. And if a question is asked, like, what's your name? And you get a name and the person doesn't know that was asked, and that comes out, now you're getting extremely compelling evidence, and you're taking out all my original concerns. So this is actually something I'm looking to add into my arsenal. I'm looking into prices on the headphones and stuff, because I think that would be a lot of fun. The reason I say if they're comfortable with it is, and Immortal here is already volunteering, I'm perfectly comfortable blindfolding myself and blocking my ears and seeing what happens. Not everybody is. And this method takes at least 2 people, right? And you'd want to take turns with it too. So I want to make sure whoever we're shutting their senses down trust the other people in the room with them, that they're comfortable enough to do this, right? We don't want anybody freaking out and spazzing on us, those kinds of things. I do respect that. So there is those methods. Now, let's see what we got here. Let's see. This is super interesting. I'm glad you're all enjoying it. Mathis, I used to work security a few years. It's definitely agree with that. Grainy cameras they're horrible. Absolutely horrible. That does sound interesting. I don't necessarily care for spirit boxes myself, but I'm willing to receive this. See, that's it. Like, I have so many problems with spirit boxes because there's there's just so many ways that they could be bullshit, right? However, using them in this method actually removes a bunch of that, removes a whole bunch of that. And I have seen evidence where they ask questions and they get very, and I mean very specific answers. We're not talking vague answers. We are talking pinpoint specific, even in the tone. Like it's coming through in the tone of a child. They're getting full sentences, are very specific to the question they're asking. And then when they go do the historical research, they find out that a kid this age died, blah, blah, blah. Like it all just lines up absolutely perfect. That's intriguing. I've only seen like 2 or 3 pieces of evidence ever with all the countless spirit box stuff I've been seeing. So that was what got my attention. And then more and more, I'm seeing people like myself who, there might be something to this technology, but it's not being used well yet. And I think that's what's led to this. I want to say it's the steer method, something like that they're calling it. And the fact that you're closing out those other gaps, I think that's really important. I do think if you use the spirit box, you should ask pointed questions that are direct, and you should expect direct answers. Overly vague answers you couldn't count as answers. That would be a problem for me. So hopefully my team will be patient with me as we run some tests and use these for some of the upcoming investigations. And I'm hoping that this method yields some actual good results so I can officially, change my stance on the spirit box. We never know how tech's going to work. We never know how investigation is going to work until we test it in many different varieties of ways, right? So that's the reason it's like I haven't seen good evidence. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big believer, but I'm always open. And I stayed open, and look, being open has rewarded me with potential here that's got me excited now, right? So now I'm at least on the excited side of the fence for the spirit box. So for those of you who's been trying to and waiting for me to get over here, I'm over there. I'm not saying it's legit. I still got to test it in the field. I got to see how the data comes, but I'm excited. Okay. Let's see. See, Immortal, can you list all the items for divination that do not work like pendulums? Honestly, look at any item that falls under the idiomotor response, okay? I don't trust any item that falls under idiomotor response. And yes, that includes dowsing rods. And for those of you who say I use copper pipes or straws to remove contact with me, I'm sorry, that doesn't remove the idiomotor response, because the muscle twitches can still use gravity to lean your hands and twitch your hands, so that even though you're not manipulating it like you're twisting it with your hands, your muscle twitches are still moving it, unfortunately. So I can, just like you can control a pendulum with the idiomotor response, you can control dowsing rods with the idiomotor response. So I'm not a big fan of either of those, personally speaking. I know some people like them. If you like them, that's great. But since I know what the idiomotor response is, and I know it can contaminate my data, I will not use those. Okay. As much as I love scrying, I also will not use scrying in a traditional sense on investigations. Now, that being said, there have been a few investigators that have caught on camera some really creepy shit. Okay. Now, one of the things I'm thinking about, I want to say it came out of China or Korea, but they were investigating a place that they already knew was haunted, and they set up a mirror to try and contact the entity with it. And they looked away, and when they looked back, they actually saw someone standing behind them in the mirror. Now, was this staged? I don't know. I wasn't there. Did they seem genuinely freaked? Yeah, it looked like they needed their brown pants in that particular video, not gonna lie. But if it wasn't staged, now that is something that I would say would be interesting. So if that's something I have considered potentially playing around with and testing, is could I get a camera on this mirror and get a camera in the corner behind me so that we can clarify, get actual synced up data that nothing's in the room with me. And if something shows up in the mirror, we got something. You know what I'm saying? Could we set a rig like that up? I think that would be interesting. So scrying or using a mirror or something would only work in that scenario, because normally when you're scrying, what you're looking at isn't literally in the mirror. You're just using the mirror more as a view screen, and you're using your arcane sight with it. So that's really absolutely pointless for collection of data. But in a case like those gentlemen, potentially God, I think that might be an interesting thing to experiment with. At this time, I wouldn't call it reliable, because until it's tested and you start getting some feedback, you really can't say it's reliable. But it would be an interesting test. Ouija boards, don't trust them at all. In fact, I'll be truly honest. Every person who has ever told me they get reliable results from a Ouija board, every single one of them, I'm like, all right, let's put it to the test. And we go to a reliably haunted spot. We apply the test, and they fail the test every time. And for those on my investigation crew, you probably already know the test, but let's just say we remove the human from the Ouija board, the human element from the Ouija board. And for some reason, what we alter, the spirit isn't able to compensate for. So that tells me the human is still contaminating it. And again, the Ouija board functions off the ideomotor response traditionally. So I wouldn't trust it beginning with the ideomotor response, and then I'm happy to test the validity of the people who claim that they always get reliable info from it by applying simple science. If you can remove the mind, if you can remove the muscles, and you can remove the human, and the spirit is indeed moving the planchette, they can pass the test easy. So far, none's ever done it. So, I'm hugely skeptical of things like that. Those are the three that I run into the most. So when it comes to the ideomotor response or divination tools, I honestly, I have seen people try to use tarot cards or runes in an investigation. Let's be honest. The tarot cards and the runes, even as a divination tool for us who love divinations, when it comes to scientific data that we're applying and that we're trying to prove the existence of ghosts or prove a haunting or prove something and bring the understanding of the paranormal to the next level, those are absolutely useless because they have to be interpreted. Every person who looks at them is not going to see the same thing without classes on divinations and instructions and stuff like that. So anything interpretive, I toss it out, because if you have to go through a full class to interpret these 72 cards or these 24 runes, and even then you're from reader to reader to reader, you're going to get a different reading, that's useless to me. Now, does that mean that if a paranormal investigator is going into a spot and they're getting hot hits and they want to try and use their tarot cards or their runes to communicate with this spirit, and they're just doing this as a hobby, that's a problem? No, I got no problems with that. I have no issues with that. Because there's a lot of people who do paranormal investigations in different ways. And you never know what they might find that might inspire some jackass like me to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe we could take that information, tweak it, and adjust it and find a data collection method. I mean, look at the scrying. Like originally, I'd say scrying was useless, right? And then you got those guys, like I said, China or Korea, I think it was, where they set that mirror up and on the camera they caught something, right? Now, was it scrying? Not technically. Something appeared behind them and it showed in the mirror. But you are seeing that there could be a practical use for this potentially. So we can always develop and learn and improve our data collection. Okay. So, but at this point, at this stage, with the best way to use tarot and runes, I wouldn't use them because they don't really make good data collection points. That's just that. Um, and well, I'm not a big astrology fan, point blank. Um, so I don't really worry about astrology. I have seen people try to do astrology and figure out the chart of a spirit, which is, um, I'm not gonna lie, it makes me laugh because I don't get it. But I always sit and I always listen attentively because I don't get it. Maybe they're going to say something that's going to click, and suddenly it's going to be, ho, 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 wait, we might actually be onto something. You never know. Ain't happened yet, but I always listen attentively because of that. Eden, I don't trust ideomotor response. That's a very interesting test. Yeah. Okay. So for this, all I do literally is put them in position, and I have them place their hands on their laps, and myself or a team member will at random adjust the Ouija board. They have no idea what direction the Ouija board is sitting. They don't know if it's upright. They don't know where it's turned. They don't know. They don't even know if it's in the correct spot. We may have just twisted it and set it back down in the same spot, right? So they're already blindfolded. Their hands are down. They don't know. And then inevitably, their idiomotor response matches where the Ouija board should be or where they think it is, not where it is. And that immediately debunks it, because if a spirit's moving the planchette and it's not them, the position of the board should not matter at all. But it does. So that's one of the things we've done. Creative solutions are sometimes the best. Yeah, I love creative solutions. You gotta do what you gotta do. And like, let's be honest, paranormal investigating equipment is like freaking expensive, just because some of it's fad. It's a lot of people view it as a fad, so they can jack up the prices, right? So if the best you can do is grab your phone and a pendulum to get in there and try and find some spooks because you're interested in paranormal, grab what you can grab, get in there and do your investigations, have fun, and do it safely. That's what I say. Right now, I'm looking, because a lot of my equipment got stolen some years back. I'm looking to put some stuff together. So I'm looking at buying new cameras. We're talking about what camera to buy. And honestly, we're looking at getting maybe a trail camera or two for motion activated snaps, especially for overnight filming in an area where things are supposed to move. And it's going to be pricey. I fully know that. And some of it's going to be cheap. Like, you can get an EMF detector pretty easy for anywhere from $10 to $15 usually these days. Luckily, the audio device, like I said, everybody owns a phone, and we're shooting for Class A, so you don't have to get too specific. I think the REM pods are interesting. I don't know, like, I'm in the air. I don't think I'm going to get one before our first investigation unless I find one at a really good price, because there's other things I want that are going to give me better data first. In fact, Immortal asked me a question earlier this week about light up cat toy balls. And I told him those are actually a pretty good tool, because if you're looking for a physical interaction, not only is it a ball, but those balls light up, which gives you a much larger visual trigger of exactly when it's being manipulated as to not. And so they can be pretty good. They can be pretty good tools, in all honesty. Same thing with like the flashlight test that I mean, for those who are old enough to remember Jay and Grant back in the days when they were, didn't know they were going to be famous. That's also a reasonable one. And that just takes a little, inexpensive flashlight to rig up and set that up. So there are inexpensive ways to do it. And if you're interested in paranormal investigation, I'd look at the basics first. Let's see what we got here. Hey, Kenny, glad you can make it. Let's see. I'm with you on that. Mugs up as well to you all. I'm actually drinking some green tea today. Aiden, how would you begin to find out the chart of a spirit? You know what? I've watched them use everything from rune tosses to tarot cards to asking questions with a pendulum. Are you this sign? Were you born this month? All kinds of things. So it's one of those tricky ones. It really is. And every step of the way, the information is getting contaminated before we even get to the astrology side. So, people do what people do. And if they enjoy it, let them do it. Right. I mean, yeah. I play D&D, and that rarely yields a lot. It's enjoyable. It relaxes me. Me and my friends get together. We goof off. It's fun. Is it relative to my research? Not at all. In fact, I really shun from even talking about D&D on this channel because I despise when people try to mix D&D with real magic. I hate it. So, there's nothing wrong with having fun with an investigation. There's really not. And there are far worse things you can do than that during an investigation. I know provoking is a big popular thing these days, and I'll be honest, if there's something I've seen go wrong in investigations, it's provoking. And I'll be honest, if you get jack smacked or clawed or pushed downstairs while provoking, I don't blame the spirit. I don't blame the ghost. I don't blame whatever's in there. I blame you because you're a jackass. And if you come to my house running your mouth and my wife clocks you upside the head with a cast iron skillet and tries to set you on fire, you did it yourself. Anyone who visits knows my wife I love her to death. She's sweet as can be to me, but to the rest of the world, she's antisocial and she don't like you. And they know this. They know you don't mess with the Sephi. So if you do that, you deserved it. And if you bug the piss out of me till I fling you out the door like a frisbee, guess what? You deserve that too. I view spirits at a haunted location under that same notion. You start it, don't complain. I don't care how bad the injury. Don't complain when you started it. Which always amazes me on TV because they start it, then they complain, they start calling it evil. And it's like, dude, if anyone's evil, it's the initiator, and you initiated it. So some of these investigators annoy the piss out of me. And I'll be honest, Ghost Adventures is one of them. Like, I cannot sit and watch Ghost Adventures. Every time I try, people's like, you should watch this episode or this episode. I can't do it. Just their personalities grate me. So, and if you like that one, I'm not saying anything, but I said their personalities and their methods grate me. I can't sit and enjoy the show because of the antics that they're pulling. And I've been to a few locations. I actually know the actual history of a few locations they've been to. And I've caught them in a lot of lies on the history of the location. So that also kind of pisses me off. Some of those locations are Kentucky, where I'm from, grew up, live, that kind of stuff. So I always hate that kind of shit. Let's see what we got. Some reason seeing a spirit or ghost in front of me doesn't bother me, but seeing some show up in a reflection is still a little unnerving. Yeah. I've known a lot of people that have that opinion. In fact, there's just a natural unnerving in our survival instinct of knowing something's behind us. And if it's in a reflection of a mirror, it's behind you. So that natural instinct kicks in. It's kind of an interesting instinct, really, when you think about it. Let's see, Kenny, a good camera in your eyes and ears. Yes, good camera and eyes and ears will get you far. And contrary to my younger years, camcorders are getting far more affordable. It's easier to get a hold of night vision. So, like, for example, we're getting ready to do like an old castle hotel kind of thing that we're wanting to do possibly next year. I've talked about it on here a little bit before. So I want to get at least one trail cam so I can get a stationary camera that picks up major movement in the room that I'm going to be in. I don't know if they'll let me put one in the hall. Probably not. But I also want to get a camcorder for while I'm awake so I can get live, constant feed. And ideally, I want a camcorder that I can, instead of just a battery, I can get it to run on AC. So I get a full live feed the whole night, not just something that activates when something moves. So those would be my ideal two pieces of camera equipment to get. It's just tracking down the right one. Right now, the hard part's the battery. They're easy to find night vision. It's easy to find one that, but finding one that can plug in on a continual power source and not just use a battery, that's going to be the larger problem. I might have to buy some extra batteries and make sure I put a fresh battery in before bed. But then, battery drain from spirits is a common thing. That's another reason I don't want to rely on a battery overnight. But once I track that down, hopefully I'll be good to go. Luckily, I still got a little bit of time. Um, do, 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 do. Let's see. Try to keep the language YouTube. Yeah, I'll try to keep it. I know I screw up a time or two myself, people. Um, especially where we've been doing more and more locals chats and stuff because I don't have to worry. I gotta get back into the YouTube voice, YouTube behavior. If someone goes out of their way to provoke a response, I'm not going to blame the spirit in the least for retaliating. Respect should always be practiced. Yep. Although I'd say if you're provoking, you might already be overstepping a line of respect there just a little bit. But at least you're not blaming the spirit. Um, have I ever gotten physically hurt in investigations? Yeah, I have. Like, there's been a lot of weird things that's happened. Um, there is the whole, have I been scratched in an investigation? Well, there's plenty of people who say I have. And there's plenty of scratches that I can't explain. I'll be honest with you, full on can't explain it. To the best of my knowledge, I never brushed up against anything or anything like that. However, there's always this doubt in my mind because I know a lot of people who bump into stuff and don't know it. And it becomes irritated a minute, 2, 3 minutes later, and that's when they notice it or, anything like that. So a lot of these scratches, I question them, but I also document them, right? And I'll also be honest with you, I don't put any credibility to the number of scratch marks because this whole demons have 3 claws mocking the Trinity, that's just horse shit. That makes no sense at all. It really doesn't. Um, so I don't put any credibility or trying to drum up some drama and fear by the number of scratch marks. And as someone who's been scratched a lot in their real life, I've seen very large things create very tiny scratches, and I've seen very tiny things create very large scratches. So scratches and size ratios are really hard to get comparison on in truth. So I find them intriguing, but I question them a lot. Have I been pushed? Yeah. Have I felt like the phantom touches or shoves? Yeah. Um, so there's always questionable things. Like one that a crew I used to run with, like they will quote. If any of you ever run into them, they will tell you about it. And I really don't read that much into it. They had asked me to try and do a meditation style. Well, it's a shamanic meditation from my Norse practice to reach out to the particular ghost on that property. I did not want to do it. This is not my style. You all know that. You've heard me ranting. And they kept going and going and going. Finally, the owner asked me to because it would make her feel better. Okay, fine. I'll do it to make the kid feel better, right? And during this, I did it, and I was um, essentially in an astral projected like state where I'm trying to attempt to follow this around. This is completely unscientific, of course, but we're trying to do the best I can do while I'm just sitting there. And what I'm seeing is a Native American-esque spirit. That's the best explanation I can give to what I'm seeing. But toward the end of it, when he was definitely tired of my being nosy, um, he shanked me with what looked like a glass or obsidian style little knife or dagger in my right leg. Okay. Which immediately that pain snapped me out of my meditative state or trance. And when I went to get up, my leg was 100% absolutely numb, non functional. Right. So everyone wrote this off as proof of haunting. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's an amazing experience. I'm like, and here's why. And this is what I tried to explain to them, and they weren't listening. Anytime I sit on the ground, anytime I sit on the floor, my legs will fall asleep. Even in this chair in my office, if I sit too still for too long, my legs will fall asleep. Okay? I have fallen asleep in my chair because I've overworked, and honestly, my leg being asleep and that pins and needle twinge is what wakes me up. During meditation, if I don't have good back support or something. If I'm sitting on the floor, my leg falling asleep and that twinge will wake me up. I have no way to prove that what happened wasn't my leg falling asleep, and my mind and my arcane senses are overlapping to make sense of it during that. I have no way to prove that's not what happened. So to me, that doesn't mean a whole lot, because in all truth, my leg was fine in just a minute or two, just like if my leg had fallen asleep. So I'm in a position where you got a whole team of people trying to get me to believe something that honestly it functioned just like my leg fell asleep. So I don't know if my leg falling asleep triggered the what I think I saw, or what I think I saw triggered my leg falling asleep. See, so that's why I don't like things like that, because people jump to what's going to fit their prediction, what they want it to be. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. And I had not seen any evidence of anything malicious or mean or anything from the spirit on that property. In fact, 3 months more of investigating that property, we never saw anything else. Only that one time, which tells me my leg fell asleep and they're jumping on this high horse of something aggressive was just not the case. And yeah, so you got to be careful with stuff like that. And like I said, I wouldn't have even done it if the family hadn't pushed me. And I explained everything to her, and she understood that. And
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
another stupid assistant device over there is talking, and I didn't even ask it anything. So yeah, you gotta be careful with stuff like that. You can't utilize that as proof, and that's just one of those things. And I actually put a hard no on the team leader that time. I was like, don't ever ask me to do it again, period. Don't ever let the family know that's an option. If you put me in that position again, I'll get my vehicle and leave. I'll be off the team permanently. No exceptions. So that's just my 2 cents on that little matter. Also, check out the cool little teapot I got. Had a bunch of people recommend it and say it was pretty good, and I wanted one I could use at the house. But this is also, it's kind of a backpacker kettle type thing. So I know it. I wanted to put some testing on it and run it. I want something that I can use on a fire when I do go camping. So it's been nice, durable. I kind of like it. Might have to even say I recommend it. Let's see. Right, I love it. I love the whole stainless steel look on it. I really do. I do. I've used it to make coffee. I've used it to make tea. Like, honestly, and I've put it on fire, so I know it'll hold up to a fire too. So it's a nice little kettle. I kind of like it. Let's see. Where are we? Let's see. Let's see. Immortal, unlike that, I don't know. Yeah. So see, you don't notice until you see the blood. Like, how many injuries? I know so many guys that they didn't know they were injured until they looked down. Oh, look at that. So I can't really put a lot of credibility into that often. Now, there are some cases where I've seen some crap. I have seen some crap that I seriously like. So I had a friend, like the dude just refused to wear shirts. I'll be honest with you. He'd usually wear like an over jacket, or if he did wear a shirt, it was unbuttoned. Like, that's just, yeah. I mean, he had the abs for it, but that's just how how he rolled. And he was with us on an investigation. He's sitting there talking, and another person, and all of a sudden you just watch him go, ah! Camera in real time, right in front of us. We see. That kind of scenario is different. That kind of scenario is a little different, because you see the irritation appear and everything. If it's under clothing, we don't necessarily know when it appeared. So it gets a little sketchier. But yeah, there's some weird things that can happen. Oh yeah, I despise the pin and needle feeling. I despise it. Rainbow Orchestra. Can I speak on the potency of African deities? Um, honestly, I've depends on what you mean by African deities. If you're talking like Loas or Orishas and stuff like that, I have noticed that they do seem to be exceptionally potent. I don't know that I necessarily would say that they're more potent than any other pantheon, personally speaking. I've worked with a lot of pantheons across the board, and at this point in time in my life, there's not one pantheon where I'll say, hey, these are the dogs that, these are the large dogs in the yard. I'll be honest with you. That being said, when we're talking about working with them, getting some quick results and stuff, um, knowing a lot of voodoo practitioners and stuff like that, I do understand that they do get very, very quick results. And some of the theories behind this are because some people view these entities as being more earthly bound than other pantheons. Not to say that they're more human, but they're they're more closely tied to the material plane, even though they're not physical beings. Almost like home field advantage, if that makes some sense to you. And that's the reason they can work so quickly. And we see this from a lot of other pantheons too. The Norse pantheon comes to mind. The Norse pantheon is so very, very closely tied within the human realm. They do seem to work very, very fast. And the more removed from the material realm, um, it's not a power difference, but it does seem to be almost a time it takes to act. Another aspect that I've noticed about the Orishas, but especially the Loas, and I know some of them do overlap there, that's for sure. But they also they have that primal anger, that primal emotion that you would expect of an entity that predates mankind or predates Earth. But they also have very human-like aspects, and they react very human-like, and that's a bad combo. Because if you think of how stupid humans can lash out in anger or jealousy or something, that is something that so many voodoo practitioners have seen in those entities and they constantly talk about. And since they don't have that separation that other pantheons do, because they are so close, they're more likely to lash out quicker and harsher, and you have less get your ass out of trouble. So it's not a matter personality differences that come into play in different aspects there. Why those things may take place. So, yeah. And we talk about voodoo, right? Well, there's so many different branches. Voodoo has probably 4, 8, 12 branches that I know of. Yeah. So just like there's so many different flavors of Baptist, and they all have their own personal little sets of beliefs, different names, different rituals, stuff like that. Roots, they all share similarities, but they do have variances in them, and they don't even agree on everything. So, and just like that, they also don't agree on the entirety of the mythology or the behavior of the entities. So you've got to understand that just because this practitioner or this group has had this experience and this one says something completely different, you got to take that into account too. Um, so yeah, you gotta be careful about that. Let's see. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Um, but I definitely think that above or below any other pantheon, if that helps. This pissing contest of what pantheon or entity stronger, it makes me laugh. It really does. Because if your only concern is what entity or pantheon is more powerful, you're missing the entire point of practicing anyway. So you've lost the race before you ever began. So, people, let's stop the dick measuring. Okay. Um, let's see. Mathis, thank you very much for the super check, mate. Mugs up to you. I say, Mathis, if you're on a house call type investigation, what would be your method or etiquette with the homeowners when it comes to arcane senses? Okay, that is an excellent question, Mathis. That is a great question. So, here's exactly how I handled this, because this is an investigation I've touched on a time or two. So, there was an investigation where um, a lady and her children, the lady wasn't having any issues. Like, she noticed there were things moving, some phantom sounds, stuff like that, that she kind of enjoyed the possibility of her house being haunted. However, her son was having a bit more problems, wasn't sleeping, was having some nightmares, was um, came screaming out of his room a time or two, all kinds of things like that. Now she has a problem. Her sister's there too, so of course she's worried, and she's actually blowing things really out of proportion. Like, the kid comes screaming out of the room, she immediately jumps to "We Are Legion," and it's just like, well, that really ain't helping. And that particular crew had been there a time or two, and they wanted my help because of the child. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll show up. So my rules were simple. I want to go in blind, first off. I want to collect data. I want to run EVP sessions. I want the cameras running. I want hard data before anything psychic, okay? And the individual who'd already done a psychic scanning, I told him, I looked at him and I said, I don't want you to peep a word to me. If you try, I have a roll of duct tape. I will duct tape your mouth shut. And Steven knew I'd do it. And I literally did have duct tape in my pocket. I was ready to duct tape his mouth shut. Um, Luckily, Steven is the kind of guy that knows I'm not bluffing. So, yeah, he stood in the corner and left me alone. Because whatever he found, whatever he thought he found, I don't give a shit. Don't need to know. So I went through, we done a good 3 to 4 hours on the house just collecting hard data. Hard, clean, untainted data, right? And I'll admit to you, there were some really, this is the house that had that really weird room that just threw me into complete vertigo. It started spinning. I couldn't figure out why. Because it's a complete lights off situation. So we're moving around in the dark. Um, and after about 3 or 4 hours of that, that was when I went back in and I was going to use my arcane senses then. Okay. And I went through the house and I tried to pick up on anything. The most I was doing with my arcane senses before now was trying to, is there any energetic shifts, right? And that could be for a lot of things. Maybe there's a fight in that room. Maybe someone had an argument earlier that day. Maybe someone did the horizontal polka in that room that day. There's so many energy reasons there can be an energetic boost in that room, or there could even be an energetic dead zone. Maybe that's just a room that no one ever uses, right? So there's so many explanations for differentials in energy other than it's a ghost. Even though that's where a lot of people jump. They notice a difference in energy or a shift, and it's a ghost immediately, or a portal, or any other number of things to try and scare a person. But when I walked through and I got my final bearings, and I did realize that I was picking up on an entity, a very specific entity. And I finally went out and I was talking to Steven and I was like, what did you pick up on? We're comparing notes and he was picking up on the same stuff. Okay. So at that point, I go talk to the mom and I ask her exactly what's been going on. She runs it by me and everything. And she's talking to me about where the son's room is. Because at this point in time, I didn't even know which room was which. And everything is lining up at that point in time. Now, technically, does any of this psychic stuff function as data? Unfortunately, no. All the um, actual EVPs, the cameras, that kind of stuff, that's going to be the better data. But that data doesn't help a kid sleep. It doesn't help a kid sleep. And her final concern is she wants her kid to be happy, right? Well, ultimately, once I find out what's happening, I understand what's happening, and I understand what we're seeing, I decide I want to go talk to the spirit because I don't think the spirit's mean at all. I really don't. I really seriously don't, because the kid's screaming because he's scared. What you all have to understand, though, is what me and Steven both picked up on was a very, very feminine, compassionate lady who just happened to have half her face blown off, or, well, actually, most of it. So, like, from here up, looked like somebody had blown it off with a shotgun. Now, I don't know about you, but me, waking up in the middle of the night looking at that, I'm probably going to scream. I'm probably going to say some stuff. So if I was a kid, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to run out of my room. I don't think she intended to scare the kid. I think she was actually looking after the kid. And Stephen kind of got the same feeling. So we asked the mother if we could go in and attempt to communicate and see if we could straighten some stuff out, to which we did. Um, And I just, made sure she understood that if you're going to check on the kid doesn't mind her. He made that clear. He just doesn't want her to scare him. So, make sure you do something about this, because I wasn't even sure she knew about this, which, come to think about it, she didn't. So I was able to use it. Now, ethically, so you asked about the ethics. For the data collection, the entire psychic side of the investigation was pointless. However, for the finding out some answers for the mom and getting the kid some peace so he can sleep in his room at night and go to school well rested, get good grades, grow up and succeed and do all the amazing things he's going to do and live a happy childhood, helped great. See, there's two sides of the investigation there. So I don't overlap them. I try to make sure not to contaminate on either side. But at the same time, if I have the ability to help an individual or a child, I'm going to do it. So that's kind of where I am on that, if that makes some sense to you. So you can utilize those talents, but I try to separate the two things as much as possible when it's something like that. Now, like the place where I'm going, okay, like we're looking at going to this old castle thing. Those rooms are haunted. The people, it's a haunted location. People visit. So there's no reason to be doing any of that. Right? I need only the physical data. There's not a kid there where I need to, hey kid, it's all right. They're not trying to hurt you. So I don't need to worry about any of that. So that aside, I would say there might be, and I would say there's something for using your psychic senses, like when you're setting your cameras up or you're placing your gear. Like if anyone's told you the hotbed locations and you're placing them and your senses are picking up on like this area you weren't told about, if you have access to that area, maybe trust your senses and drop a camera there. You might catch something. It might help you get your cameras in the right location. I would say there's nothing wrong with that, because ultimately you're just setting the camera and the camera's still collecting that hard data for you, if that makes some sense. Hopefully that makes some sense. But when it comes to the homeowners, always respect the homeowners, always respect their request as best you can. Do your best not to panic them. Don't go in there talking about demons and malevolence and ooga boogas and all this. Don't do that. That's not helpful. That's not helpful at all, because if it's a thought form and somebody's got them stirred up thinking it's a demon, even if you banish the thought form, the fear that they're going to have left over is going to recreate the freaking thought form. So don't go making things worse. Let's see. Mathis, don't know if I worded that well. What I mean is what you can pick up on versus what everyone else or the equipment picks up on. Well, with my arcane senses, personally, like I can pick up on a lot. In fact, I usually try to close my senses when I go into a haunted location, because it can be overwhelming. It really can. And I usually, there's not usual. I always pick up on more than the camera equipment and the audio equipment. So for a while, I was actually running, and I may get back to doing this because unfortunately I lost the file. So, like when I do evocation work and contact work with entities, there for a while, I was actually running an audio device to see if the audio recorder could pick up the evocations, not just my arcane hearing, right? Because I know every time I sit down and do an evocation, I can hear it. That's the whole point of doing an evocation, right? Well, the audio recorder didn't pick it up most of the time. The cool part was there were times where it did pick up parts of the evocation. It did pick up part of the communications. Just like where I've told you all, cameras have picked up my guardian dragons from time to time. Um, and of course, my senses and whatnot. I've had audio pick them up just as well. But um, so, in my experience, the arcane senses can pick up more than the equipment. In my experience, that's going to differ though, or could differ from person to person, because if you have someone who they're really crappy at using their arcane senses or they haven't trained them much at all, there's a chance the equipment will pick up more than they will. So you got to consider, the training of the person into that equation. Because I'll tell you, back in the day when I started doing paranormal investigations, my senses weren't a problem because I didn't believe in magic. so, so I was quick to write off any random sounds. I was a big skeptic back then. So yeah. So you got to take those little factors into account. Does that make some sense? Let's see. Have you ever had a corporeal manifestation of spirit before during an investigation where it seemed indistinguishable from a person? There are a few times where we have had an instance like that. Unfortunately, the cameras went dead. Um, I will say one of those instances where I was present, like I have no fucking explanation. Pardon me. I mean, I have no freaking explanation for what that person shouldn't have been there. Point blank, shouldn't have been there. So I have to say that was a manifestation of something. Now, a few of these things, due to the camera angle, the lighting, and whatnot, it could be someone. It could be an image being cast across from a window or something like that. Some of those optical illusions, which are really cool, they're really freaking cool all the same, but that doesn't make it, a spirit. And then there's a few of them where, like, I literally had a buddy who spent 30 minutes hitting on a lady only to, like, it's like, dude, we are literally the only persons in this building. There is no one else here. So either you're talking to a homeless person who snuck in, or you just been talking to a ghost. Um, and we swept the building. We couldn't find them, so we ended up pulling the records on the building. It's a pretty historical site, and we actually found the lady in those records. Like, I've never seen that dude pass out faster. It was kind of funny when he realized what had happened. And he couldn't tell her from any different, like, he thought she was there. Um, So it has happened. It's not the most common of experience. It's definitely on the rare end, but it has happened. Like I said, of most of the experiences, as rare as it is, most of the experiences, I can come up with another explanation for what it might have been. Except that one. That one I have no explanation for. And as far as Jim's experience, I mean, I know Jim won't lie to me. I know Jim won't lie. Like, the dude would rather shoot himself in the foot or shoot his own dick off than lie. I know this. So, and then watching his reaction to the photo, well, you clearly know he ain't lying now because that dude just went out black. I mean, he blacked out. I wasn't there to see who he was talking to because we were worried because he went missing. So we actually had went to find him, and when we found him, he was already on his way heading back to us. So, you know, I can't I can't explain what happened there. There's no reason an optical illusion or something should have been able to find in the history records. There shouldn't have been. So I have to count that one as credible, but I wasn't there to see it personally. Um, let's see. We always go into the investigation to make sure. There is something there and not problems with the home. Always check the home. Houses settling and creaking. Houses make some of the most interesting and weird noises. That's one of the reasons I'm so glad I grew up in a family full of construction workers, carpenters, electricians, and stuff like that, and plumbers. I know how to check a house. And honestly, if you're wanting to truly get into paranormal investigations, learn about housing, learn about what makes a house creak, learn about air conditioning, learn about air ducts, learn about level doorways and hinges and floorboards, stuff like that. Like I said, in one thing, if you're going to do paranormal investigation, have a level, just a traditional water bubble level in your kit. You do not understand how practical that one piece of equipment can be, just in the simplicity of you can find how unlevel something is. Like you can look at it and it looked perfectly level, but you lay the level on it and then you realize it isn't level at all. Um, that's the beauty of an optical illusion, really. The eye can be tricked very easily, very, very easily. So, yeah, always check the housing. Always check the house, look for things like that. Look for strong, like people use EMF to think, oh, the meter's changing. Oh, it's highly spiked here. Make sure you're getting a base reading on all things. And if there's an abnormally high reading anywhere that shows up during the investigation or at the beginning of the investigation or after, try to find out what is causing it. Look for electrical problems first. Don't assume a ghost, because there are some things that will spike an EMF when power surges go through it, like when the air conditioner kicks on or when it kicks off or certain recording devices go on. There's things that can change it. So take the baseline, but even when it shows up, make sure you try to find out, is it coming from a location? Is it coming from the ceiling? Is it coming from walls? Is it coming from a floor? Try to locate it as a power problem first before we just say, oh, that's a ghost, right? That is a good skill to get into. And honestly, the admin that are agreeing to go out and help me, that might be one of the things about me that annoys them the most is I will try to debunk anything you bring to me first, because I need to find out that it does not have a perfectly normal everyday reason. Okay. So yeah, definitely look for those things. Check the house. You'd be surprised how easily you might find something. Um, Thanks, Drake. That answered my question. That one's from, I remember that one from one of your other videos, and thanks for putting the other type of investigation in the answer too. No problem. No problem. Like I said, my focus is on the data, right? It is. That's my interest. That's my focus. But I'm also a very kind of protective person. So, like, if there's a kid that's worried or afraid, I'm going to try and help the kid. I really am. Um, I don't care your excuse. You don't mess with kids. This gets me in trouble on a few topics, but uh, I'll be honest. If you're someone and you're trying to make an excuse for harming a kid, I don't have the time of day for you. So, yeah, when it comes to those, I'm quick to do that. I'm quick to help out. I will put I don't put the kids' safety behind my data. Like if I can help the kid, but it's going to completely contaminate the data, I will put the kid first. But if I can keep the two completely clean and separated, I'm going to do it. But ultimately, anytime there's a situation like that, it's let's help the family first. Does That's just who I am as a person. Um, Rainbow, I wonder how many people in real life are really dense ghosts. I actually have a theory that it's a lot more than we think. Like, there's been plenty of times in my life where I've been talking to someone and I turn around to grab something, turn back around, and they've walked off. Did they walk off or did they disappear? Because I honestly, there's a few of them, they can't be that quick. I have talked to plenty of people in life where they've encountered people, very, very tangible people, people that even carried their tray for them in a restaurant type people that when they turn around for like less than 60 seconds to turn back around, not only is the person no longer in the restaurant, but they're across the road on a sidewalk. Um, you just can't make that kind of distance. So there's a lot of interesting things that are reported to happen. Unfortunately, some, we can't really get proof on them and stuff, but it's very probable. Um, Even working with the Fae, I mean, the Fae themselves claim to love walking around our world, and I've heard more than 100 Fae easy comment about how they love walking amongst the people, and we're here. You see us, you just don't know we're us. You just assume we're you. And is it probable? It's probable. Do we have proof of it? No. And the proof is kind of the important aspect there. So, take that for what you will. Let's see, Mathis, Kenny and I are planning to do some investigations in the lower part of the Appalachian Trail. That's a great area. After we get a few things squared away. That is a great area. That is a great area. I'm actually looking at buying property back in the Appalachia. And my mom's like, she was super excited. She's like, and she actually asked, she's like, well, if you move out here, are you still gonna be able to do the stuff you do? Like, oh, Lord, Mom, doing my job out there would be easier. She's like, okay, suddenly I'm not as excited. Mom gets spooked so easy. I love her to death. But yeah, that's a great area down on that lower end of the Appalachian Trail. If you get any good captures, Mathis, feel free to email them to me. I'd love to see them, photos or video. Let's see. Attempting to debunk before believing is a good mindset to have. Agreed. Eliminate the stuff that it could be before you jump to the paranormal. Oh yeah, it's almost impossible to verify those kind of dense ghost encounters that happen at random when it's just a normal day. But it is definitely an interesting concept. I've had enough weird spiritual encounters that I have to think there's some validity to most people's claims. I really do. Can I prove it? No. And that's where, just kind of got to bite the bullet on that one, I guess. Have I ever met people that I think are Fae? No, I've never ran in and encountered a human that I thought was Fae. I've ran into humans who think they're Fae, and unfortunately, that doesn't really work that way. But I've never ran into a human being that I thought was a Fae. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I've worked with the Fae enough that the moment I'm talking to a person and looking at them, like the Fae's energy would just be distinguishable. You're going to know it immediately. So if you've worked with the Fae, you're going to know it. So, for example, many of you know that we literally released the first part of the Fae pathworking last night, and we got more of those coming out. So let's say you do that 6-month pathworking for the summer court. You complete that pathworking. If you genuinely do that pathworking from start to finish, you'll never have to question if a person's a Fae or not, because you're going to be so smacked in the face by that energy and in an intense way for that 6 months. You're going to know Fae energy, especially summer court Fae energy. And if you do both of them, you're covered. So it's just one of those things. There's only so much they can mask because of who they are. They can't, and Fae can't lie either. So there's that little kicker. So that's never been an issue. At the same time, have I encountered Fae in my day-to-day life, walking in the park or walking through a hiking trail or in the city or Starbucks? I have encountered them. And in truth, it's really awkward for me because you can never tell. Like, my arcane senses are at a point where I can't tell if everybody in this place can see this person or if I'm the only one seeing this person. So it's really an awkward thing if they walk up and say hi, because now I'm trying to say hi. I'm trying to be respectful without also looking like a complete nutter. Um, So, because if they see this person, well, that's hunky dory. Great. That's amazing because now I don't look like a nutter no matter what. But if I look like I'm talking to myself over there at the table, well, I'm going to look like a nut. I really am. So, that's kind of the downside to where my arcane senses are. So I prefer when it happens in a less than public area, but it does happen in public. It's even happened in Costco once. But that was fun. So, things happen. Things happen. Kuan Yin, what is the 6 month? It's a 6 month path working, start to finish. It starts at the winter solstice to the summer solstice with the summer court. Particularly, you'll be working with the Fae Queen, Tatiana, and the 6 lords and ladies of summer for the entire 6 month period that the summer court would be in your hemisphere. Now, I say winter solstice to summer solstice. So the reason we're releasing it right now is obviously I'm in the northern hemisphere. The winter solstice is coming up. That's when it's going to start. So we're starting to lay out, the things you're going to need for the path working. What are the rules that the Fae are going to lay down for the path working? We're starting to release that data so you can get everything ready for the winter solstice. So when that drops, you can start your path working, right? If you're in the southern hemisphere, you'd have to wait till okay, a little off topic, but at the winter solstice, the summer court takes control of the northern hemisphere, and the winter court goes to the southern hemisphere, right? So they're technically reversed. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, at the same time the summer court path working would be starting, the southern hemisphere would traditionally be starting in the winter, but I don't have the winter court one out. Sorry. So you'd have to just get a hold of it, work through it, take notes, and prepare for when it does come to the southern hemisphere. I can't be in 2 hemispheres at once, people. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's already starting to release. It is a supporter only path working. We're going in depth. I've even got an individual working through it live. So I'm actually putting them through it at the same time. So we're going to be having interviews and discussions with them and their experiences, the problems they've run into, how they've solved those problems, so that you guys, while you're working through it, you can continue to watch them and actually see them go through it with you at the same time. And we're going to roll it out. I'm going to try and have every piece of content a month ahead, so you have access to the next piece. And we're going to be rolling it out all the way through summer, really. But we've already started rolling it out because some of those stuff needs to be in place before the winter solstice. So we are already starting to roll that out. So yeah, cool thing there. Oh, crap. How did I forget? We're way over an hour and I forgot. Everyone, the votes are in on the admin costume contest for Halloween. Okay. Born Oldest has awarded the winners of the community costume contest. I was specifically waiting for the live stream to announce this. I am so sorry I forgot I waited this late. But our winner of the 2024 Working Dragon Mystic Halloween contest is Born Oldest with his costume of the Witcher. He got the most community member votes. He did a great job with it. I want to thank all the admin who did participate in the contest. We may have to do this again next year. Born Oldest, I will be contacting you about what I'm sending you. I'm going to be giving you a prize. I didn't get to vote in the contest because that wasn't part of the deal. The community decided. So, and I'm glad I didn't have to vote because I think we had some great entries. I wouldn't have wanted to vote. But congratulations, Born Oldest. I will be getting your prize out to you. I have a pretty good idea for you. I kind of decided on customizing the prizes for everyone, and since Born Oldest won, I know what I'm getting. So, woohoo! Congratulations. If you hadn't seen the costume pictures, head over to Locals. I put the admin's entries over there. Check them out. You really should, because they all did a great job. Immortal actually put little lights and everything on his. It was really super cool. So yeah, they did a great job. Absolutely great job. All right. Anyways, I know that was off topic and random. Let's see. I love those security videos with people having conversations, then getting radio notification. Oh yeah, I've been one of those people. I literally have. Let's see. Immortal, I might be too curious to go there now. LOL. I'd probably turn around at a everything like at work. Yeah, you know how it goes. And there's my clocks. In, I'm also planning for us to do some investigations in Savannah. Savannah's fun. I love Savannah. I have investigated in Savannah a lot. Savannah can be a lot of fun. So if you get the opportunity, do it. Definitely. Um, all right, everyone. With that, I'm going to hop off here. If you are interested in the Fae Pathworking, go over there and check out the first video. I want to say the first 2 or 3 videos are going to be open to the whole community. But as we get into the meat and the potatoes, the queens are going to have me lock that down. I was able to get a few videos. Tatiana's letting me do a few videos that everybody can start getting a sneak peek to kind of judge if you want to be into it or not and get ready. So consider it. If not, just check us out over on Locals, become a member. That way you can stay up to date on everything that is happening. There's a lot of weird things, a lot of changes in YouTube and algorithms and stuff. So just to make sure you don't lose track of Working Dragon Mystic and the stuff we're doing, go follow us over there as well as here on YouTube. Until next time, everyone, have a great weekend. Take care. Good night. I'm going to go make dinner. Later.